Hi, Tina. So it's really looking forward to chatting to you today. And so first, just give us a little bit of background about yourself.
So I'm Tina and I teach fitness classes and I'm a personal trainer in North London, around Barnet area in Whetstone. And I have I started my fitness journey about 10 to 12 years ago now. But about 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago, I also decided that I realized that I was really reliant on or addicted to sugar. So I gave up or started my sugar-free journey 10 years ago this October. So in October 2024, it will be 10 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
It is.
Yeah, it's a long time. But so what made you sort of think, okay, what did you feel that was linked to the sugar?
Well, at the time, I was in my mid-30s. I was 35, and yes, I had two young children, but I was, in my mind, eating a healthy diet. But I was always tired. I was always lethargic. I had constant colds. I had low energy. I often suffered with headaches. About 4 to 6 times a year, I would suffer with migraines as well, and the type of migraine where that's it for the rest of the day. IBS, irritable bowel, so bad digestion, loads and loads of different things. And I had been slowly improving my diet over time. I'd read up about, you need selenium for energy. So I started eating Brazil nuts, and then I looked up, then I realized that certain chemicals in certain foods might cause things like I had skin issues, so that might cause that. And then I chose to try and ignore all of the articles that I came across about sugar and being really reliant on it. But in the end, I went out. So I remember the date perfectly. It was in the spring of 2014. And I was going to go out with my friend to the Royal Albert Hall to go and see they do like the Teenage Cancer Trust concerts, and we'd booked one to go and see. And even though I'd eaten my dinner and had a dessert afterwards, I still went into the cupboard and picked out 2 chocolate bars for us to share whilst we were there. And I thought that, as I handed it to her, I said, "Here, I've bought us some Lindt chocolate. I'm addicted to this, aren't I?" And that's when I made that decision and knew that I was addicted to sugar at that time.
So was it more the addiction that made you stop, or just the fact of how it was making you feel, or both?
Everything. I didn't know how bad I felt. Now I know, but at that time I just knew that I was always tired, knew that I'd wake up never feeling refreshed, knew that I always wanted to nap mid-afternoon. You're 35. I even remember being 25 and one afternoon just nodding off on the sofa, and it's sort of 3 hours later waking up. I suppose I had the time then as well. Waking up and then going about my sort of normal evening business, and then going to bed for another 10 hours that night, and never feeling as though I was refreshed. So it was really a joint thing. I realized that I was really addicted to the sugar, but also linked that then, or allowed myself to realize that the link was there between me feeling substandard and me being really reliant on sugar.
So as well, like, it must have been really hard in the beginning because so much of our food has sugar in it, like even down to packet ham and things like that. I remember my partner trying to do like, oh, I'm going to do sugar-free like for a week or whatever it was, or even if it was like a couple of days. And being in the supermarket, and I'm like, well, you can't have that, you can't have that, you can't have that. Like, it's really tricky these days to eliminate it from your diet.
Yeah, my supermarket trips tend to be quite quick because and they always say it. They're all of the ingredients that you want are around the edge. You don't really go into the middle, and that's true. It only takes me longer when I've run out of household stuff, because I'll go to the meat section, I will go to the fish section, I will get eggs, I will get my dairy that I'm okay with dairy, so I can eat that. It doesn't affect me, so that's fine. I get my dairy, and that's just plain yogurts as well. Fruit and veg. and any nuts and seeds. So you kind of go and find the baking or health food section to get those bits and pieces. I've also realised since then that I can't myself digest pulses and that kind of thing very well. The only thing I can digest is red lentils. So all of that stuff is even out of the window for me. So it's quite a quite quick experience going to the supermarket. Anything essentially in a packet has probably got sugar in it. Sometimes I'll get, so with your ham that you mentioned, obviously I don't get the honey roast ham, but you do need to have a look, even at bacon, because often it's maple cured and you don't realize it. So you do I will always double check. And if the grams per 100 of, where you go carbohydrates of which sugars, if it's sort of 5 grams and underneath, if it's something like a mustard or something like that, I'll let it slide because you don't eat much of it. But it's interesting to see just how much sugar there is in your average, what you think is a savory food that you've been eating for years. It's not actually savory.
It's quite shocking, really, isn't it? When you start like looking at labels and looking at even down to calories and things like that. I think maybe you probably get this too, but I have so many clients that are like, yeah, but I eat healthy. Like, I cook it from scratch and it is healthy. And yeah, cooking from scratch is great. But it doesn't always mean that it's gonna help with your weight loss journey, because there's so many other things that, as we're saying, there is sugar in all these different things that they're still adding. So you said you had children. So how did your children do it too?
They kind of, not really, they kind of did it by default, because as I learnt more, I thought that I was being a good mum because I didn't allow them to have Cocoa Pops and Frosties, but I bought them Cheerios instead, and that's ridiculous because it's kind of, that's how it's packaged up to you, and it's like, I won't get the honey Cheerios, but I'll just get the plain ones because they're better, and they're not really, it's all the same. So we went through a period of time whereby I just stopped buying the sweeter end of things, and they had the more savory tasting cereals. So the only things that we had in the house were things like Ready Breck, Rice Krispies, cornflakes, and Shreddy sometimes, so they were the sort of more savory end. But even after a while, we just got rid of those as well. As they grow up and started to understand a little bit more, we've even got rid of those. The only thing that I have in the house now is porridge oats, and it just stays there forever. Nobody eats them.
So how do you feel that it changed your health, your energy levels, like maybe your sleep, all those things? What's the difference?
So I'm a completely different person. I couldn't even focus, at work. I had low confidence, and I know confidence goes up with age. I'm 45 now. At 35, you're probably low, and with little young children, you might be sort of low and confident, unsure of yourself. But the change since I've changed my diet has been, I'm a completely different person. My energy levels have gone up. I wake up in the morning ready for the day. It doesn't take me time to wake up and sort of get going. My confidence, as I said, has gone up. I'm clear-minded. When I'm focusing on something, I focus. I don't find it hard to learn. Even as I remember doing my GCSEs and finding it hard to learn and to retain information. It wasn't that it was that I didn't understand it all, but it was the retention, and I can retain a lot more now. 30 years older than I was when I did my GCSEs. I'm much happier. Any of that sort of those down feelings that I could get have all disappeared. Headaches have all disappeared. Never ever get migraines now, and my IBS is much better as well.
That's amazing. So it's made a huge difference.
Yeah.
What about we're both in the health and fitness industry, and we both try and obviously coach our clients. So what have you kind of converted any of your clients to the same lifestyle as you?
Yes, I have actually. I don't know if they are sort of doing what I have. A couple of my ex-colleagues did did a period of time sugar-free. And in fact, at the time, they were about 15 years older than me. So they were going through the menopause, and both of them found an immediate change. You know, their hot flushes and things disappeared. They felt a million times better. They could fall asleep quite easily at night as well. They didn't wake up overnight. So they really benefited. Of the women that I work with within my community, many are postmenopausal. So that sort of menopause, the effects of that, you know, they've gone past that anyway. However, there have been a good few who have they were sort of borderline diabetic or just been diagnosed as type 2 diabetic and have reversed that. And in fact, one of the main people that I worked with, who I finally persuaded 9 years after my journey started, was my own mum, who had hidden from me that she had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes just before the pandemic. And then when she told me about a year ago that she was on medication, she was on metformin, and I said to her, I can't believe this is so embarrassing. You know, people pay me and come to me for that information, and you don't even listen to your own daughter. And she kept going to me, oh, I'm okay, there's nothing wrong. In the end, we had some clear discussions, and she agreed to give it a go. Within 3 months, they had halved her metformin. 3 months after that, they'd taken her off the metformin, and now it's 6 months later, and she's still off of it. So she has put her type 2 diabetes into remission just by making a few changes. It's not sugar-free, but some massive changes with what she's eating, how and when.
That's amazing. I mean, that's fantastic. And I was going to say to you, actually, like, what would you say, like, if you were chatting to your clients, like I'll chat to my clients, what would be the red flags? Would there be sort of little red flags where you'd say, you know what, you could really benefit from being sugar-free? Like, have you ever thought about it? Or even, like, obviously this podcast and my clients, it's all about kind of midlife. It's all about that perimenopause, menopause journey, and how we can make it as easy as possible, because it's a harsh time sometimes for women. And, you know, diet has such a huge part to play with the weight gain, you know, with the way they feel. So what would be like the red flags for you where you'd say, oh, hang on, have you tried this?
Yeah, I would say if you are feeling tired all the time, you're always hungry or feeling like you need to graze with food, you're quite often ill, or if you get hangry or suddenly tired, so all of a sudden you just feel really, really sleepy, or as if you know, if you don't go and eat your lunch now, then you're going to shout at someone. Also, like headaches, irritable bowel, so digestion issues. Of course, if you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or if your doctor has said to you you're pre-diabetic, you've got non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or even that sometimes they'll say it as like you've got liver markers, your liver markers are up. That's what that means. So that's all along the same sort of timeline of headed towards type 2 diabetes. And all of that, you can bring it right the way back and heal your liver, which is sort of where everything starts to happen. And of course, if you just crave sweet food or fancy something sweet, including alcohol. So if you fancy a drink, it gets to about 4 p.m. You're like, I can't wait to have that cold glass of white wine or a beer or, you know, that cocktail. That is very, very often a sugar craving. And I know that's a completely different discussion, but that is a sugar craving. You're probably hungry when that happens. So you probably are your body is looking for some nutritious foods to digest. And that's what's causing that. So you might be craving biscuits with tea or coffee. You might be craving a croissant. You might be craving, you know, a cold glass of white wine. I class that as exactly the same thing. You know, that's packaged down into your body wants some nutrition, and that's how it's presented itself to you.
And also, because you said you obviously had given up alcohol too. That you said that, didn't you?
I did about a year ago. I did. So about a year ago, I didn't plan to give up alcohol, but I'd seen a tweet I don't know what the posts on X. So it's not Twitter anymore, it's X. But I'd seen something by a sort of a fitness influencer called Alice. She used to be called Clean Eating Alice many years ago. And she had wrote something, this was about 2 years ago. She just wrote something about how she had stopped stopped drinking alcohol, or really stays away from it because it made her feel really down afterwards. And over the next few months, every time I went out, not very often, I don't drink very much, but if I went out and had a drink, I did realise that, yes, I was a little bit, even after one or two wines, felt quite hungover at the day after. But for 2 following days after that, I was plunged into this sort of almost deep depression or lack of motivation and feeling really down. And I had remembered what she had said about that. So I thought, it's the same for me. So last May in 2023, I went out with a couple of friends, and just had 2 wines, and then I was wiped out. That was a Saturday night. I was wiped out until the Tuesday. Now I run my own business, and I end work at midday on Saturday, and I start first thing on Monday morning. I don't have 3 days spare to feel awful after having 2 glasses of wine. So I just thought to myself, I'm not going to bother drinking again the next time I go out, and I didn't. And in my mind, I've always just thought, well, the next, if I fancy it, then I'll have it. But every time that I've gone out, I've been fine without it. I've had a good time. I haven't needed that drink, and I haven't felt as though I have space in my life to wipe out 2 or 3 days of my life of feeling as I do now. So I just stopped, and I don't mind having a drink, but I don't mind equally not having one. So I just feel happier without it.
I think as well, like with the perimenopause, menopause thing, I think that there's unfortunately so many symptoms. So there's so many obviously symptoms, and I'll hear my clients say, but yeah, I've got this, and I've got this, and I'm craving, and their sleep's bad, which is probably why they're craving. And the hot flushes and the brain fog. So it's probably hard for people to differentiate. Is that the right word? Differentiate. That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Say like the effects from the sugar or the effects from their diet to the effects of menopause, and I think they go hand in hand, because I think the poor diet escalates the symptoms. Being sedentary escalates the symptoms. So it's quite hard maybe for people to say, oh, actually, that's linked to the diet, but that's menopause. I mean, you're 45, so you're still probably quite young. Maybe, I don't know, hormone issues, I don't know, but you're coming into that sort of maybe phase. It's coming, and hopefully with the changes you've made, like, how do you feel maybe entering that phase?
That phase actually is very much here. It hit me initially at age about 38, 39, which I think coincides with just before lockdown. I did start to I would have, so I'd wake up in the morning and the bed sheets were soaked with, that's how hot and sweaty I got, and I hadn't realised overnight. And during lockdown, I was the same. Now there is something else that I have also removed from my diet since then. So during lockdown, pre-lockdown, I suffered greatly with joint pain as well. So the 2 main things that I had were hot flushes and joint pain. Pain in my knees, ankles, elbows as well, and wrists. And just not too long before lockdown, I had been for some x-rays to double check all of my joints, and they said there was nothing wrong with me. So, and of course, during lockdown, we did have extra time, didn't we? So I did some research. And I had read up about how grains can be inflammatory. So I did a period of time, and I removed grains from my diet, and within a week, all of the pain had gone. So I removed all flours. I hadn't really been eating that much wheat anyway, just some flatbreads and things. But I was eating rye breads and that sort of thing, and not avoiding anything that had flour in it. And as soon as I removed that, the majority of my pain disappeared. The last bits of IBS cleared up, and my hot flushes also dropped. Now, the hot flushes dropping may have just been because my hormones regulated a bit more during that time, but I know that pain is a menopause a symptom of perimenopause, and I suffer with it on and off now. It's really on and off. The hot flushes for me now have come back, but what they tend to do is it's always around midnight, and I'll get sort of really super hot for a while, feel as though I need to strip off a bit, and then it subsides. But I can quite clearly see that coming. What I've noticed is that now that when hormonally everything's balanced, and I know how I feel, I can tell when my hormones change because I can observe it with clarity now. I can see it coming, and I can really clearly identify either that's because, if I get something, for example, joint pains, knee pains, or pains in my hands and wrists, I'll either think back to what I've eaten, and if I've been out for a meal over the last few days, it's likely that that was the issue. Or I can also tell where my hormones are at just with how I'm feeling. So I'm much clearer with understanding what it is that's caused that. And also, I feel I'm a lot more well equipped now to be able to deal with those fluctuations and the pain or the other symptoms that those hormonal fluctuations give me.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, and that's sort of part of the issue, isn't it? Because when you think about it, if people have got that, as I said, sedentary lifestyle, maybe not a great diet, all these symptoms, it's actually hard to sort of pinpoint where they're coming from. Energy levels, some of my clients, they're tired, and it's hard unless you start eliminating things, maybe as you said, like the sugar and stuff. It's hard to kind of pinpoint. I know for myself that, like, going through menopause, I think I would have had a much tougher time if I didn't exercise and if I didn't watch what I ate. To a degree, I'm not sugar free, but to a degree, I just think that I would have had a worse journey. That's what I'm trying to say. I think I would have had like a little bit of more of a turbulent menopause, possibly.
That's what I'm hoping with me as well. I'm hoping that, maybe we can chat in 10 years time when I'm 55 and we can check back in. But I'm hoping that I will be able to manage it more. And exercise is a massive part of it. I can't deny it. My joints hurt more if I don't do weights, and I teach weights regularly anyway, so I don't have to go out and go and find some, a weight. I don't have to pick up my weights and do it. It's part of my job, so I'm very lucky in that way. And also all of those, the creakiness, the sort of brittleness and the aches and pains. I teach fitness Pilates, and a lot of that I choose to teach it in a way that is strengthening, but also that has got a lot of mobility and stretch in it as well. So again, I've created, in fact, and we're not here to talk about my timetable of what I teach, but I've created that timetable for the postmenopausal woman. Anyone can come to it. I can have guys sometimes that come to my class. It's irrelevant. But that timetable and what I've done is I've created it for a menopausal woman to come in, and if she did 2 classes or 7, whatever she wants to do, those classes will benefit her. She will build strength. She will de-stress. She will loosen tight muscles, and she will feel better as a result of that. And if she then also reads my weekly email, for example, which often talks about sugar or healthy food, and implements that, then she should get a lot fitter and healthier. So it's so important that everything is seen as a whole. It's not just how many fitness classes you do and what you do in them is important. If you're going all out with cardio, maybe that's not the best thing. So building muscle is as important as dealing with your own stress, as important as buying in the healthy ingredients and not buying ultra processed foods. All of those as a unit will come together, and that will give you greater well-being throughout this period or any period of your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go on a diet and then go nuts with going to the gym or anything like that. What that means essentially is healthy habits, small habits that you do that you stack on top of each other, that will benefit you, and they might not benefit you today, but they might do in 10 days or in 10 weeks or in 10 months. For example, this is something that I love doing, is sugar maths, and I worked this one out the other day. The most popular chocolate bar in the UK is a Mars bar, which I think they're disgusting. I didn't like them even when I did eat sugar. I didn't like them, but it's a Mars bar, and a standard Mars bar is 51 grams. If somebody ate a Mars bar every single day over the course of a year, that's 11 kilograms of extra sugar that they've eaten. However, if they stopped that, then they're just taking out 11 kilos, just that one thing. If they then also went for a walk, an extra walk every day, and just did 1,000 steps, every day, which is about 10 minutes, depending on your speed of walking. It's about 10 minutes, maybe 15. Then over the course of a year, you've walked at least an extra 150 miles. So if you just imagine that you've just done those two things, then already you've made a massive difference in 1 year. So that's, I always see that's the best way to approach health, fitness, and then you'll see those benefits hopefully moving through the menopause too.
Some of my ladies that come to me and they'll be like, but I did this and this used to really work. And I think it's almost like that you have to get to a point of almost like a slight re-education that, okay, you did boot camp in your 20s and you lost loads of weight and that's amazing, but it ain't going to happen now. No. I hate to break it to you, but it's not going to happen now. Your body will respond differently. And again, exactly what you say, we kind of try and go with like the different pillars of the stress, of the workout, of the muscle building, of the step count, and the sugar. I mean, I'm not sugar free. It's not something that I particularly would recommend it, I suppose, if I felt there was a need for it for my clients. But it's more just about, as you just said, the small little habits that are easy to implement that you hope they can sort of carry on and see through. And they're the little things that you're trying to instill for the midlife woman. So it's not such a big thing, not such a big deal. It's just like a few little implementations, as you said, just go for that extra walk, just go for that one less biscuit, just go for that one. And it's a hard one. I think as again, a lot of women are having these symptoms and it's hard to sort of know where exactly, and most of them probably are coming from diet and lack of exercise.
Absolutely, and nobody needs to go sugar-free unless they really want to. I would say if you're type 2 diabetic, then go sugar-free, or if you're pre-diabetic or have non-alcohol, go sugar-free. However, if you're not, then I would still, in order to prevent that happening, I would really look at your sugar intake. I'm not saying go sugar-free. That's ridiculous. Of course, I'm sugar-free, but I'm not sugar-free because if I eat an apple, I'm not sugar-free, am I? So, and I don't not eat apples, but I certainly don't drink apple juice. Do you see what I mean? So there are stages of being sugar-free. A true sugar-free diet, you'd be like, I'm not eating peas. That's ridiculous. I'm going to have some peas. So, I wouldn't worry about going sugar-free, but I would worry about understanding that the 2 afternoon biscuits that you have, this is another one, 2 chocolate digestives, which I'd never eat 2. I used to eat 4. I'd eat 2 whilst I was getting my tea and biscuits out, So the 2 chocolate biscuits every day, let's say, over the course of a year, is 3.7 kilos of sugar. So it's having an understanding of that. And understanding that, and you should just kind of go, 1 minute, well, if I'm eating, I don't know, Weetabix with honey in the morning, because that's healthy, right? Or porridge with honey, because that's healthy, right? Yeah. But there is sugar in that. And of course there is. So do you remove that, or do you remove your mid-morning biscuit, your mid-afternoon cake, and your evening cocktail, for example? What can you take out in order to keep your blood sugars as steady as you can throughout the whole day? I wouldn't focus too much on that porridge and honey if you don't want to, but if you do want to, then you can take it all out, and heal yourself internally, and put the type 2 into remission. but the general average person, just think about where the sugar is throughout the day. You probably don't realize how much there is, and then see what you can take out. Even if you took out 2 things, it maybe you even drink tea with sugar in it. You know, you're having 3 cups a day. That is again 3 cups a day, 1 spoon of sugar in each. That ends up being about 4 kilos per year. So it's an awareness of that. So say you did have that Mars bar and you always had sugar in your tea. You take the sugar out of the tea, stop having the Mars bar. So that is what, 15 kilos in the year. You go for an extra walk every single day. You've added to that 150 miles on, and say you then add in even 1 fitness class a week. You know, the benefits are amazing, and you haven't even gone on a diet. You haven't had to join the gym. You haven't had to do, you haven't had a massive overhaul. You can still enjoy your wine on a Saturday night. You can still enjoy a little bit of cake with a friend if you go out for coffee or whatever. No one's, told you that you have to do anything, but you're still getting the benefits from it.
I think, it's the perfect way, isn't it? It's just the perfect way to break it down like that. To say just, and also, I think women seem to forget as well that their body is responding differently at that period of time to sugar. We are responding differently. What else was I just about to say to you? Just come into my head, and I was like, oh.
Well, I have one more thing to say. So
hang on, one sec.
You go, and then I'll write mine down.
You know what I struggle with some of my ladies? A lot of them turn to fruit smoothies, but it must be healthy. And I think there is such a big learning curve as well, such a big, around the supermarket healthy food. And to actually look at the labels, but if I just have all these smoothies, all these fruit smoothies, I'm like, well, not really. but they feel they're being healthy. That's what I'm trying to say.
I very rarely have a smoothie, and I'll tell you exactly what I have, and it's dependent on where people are that are listening to this in the country, but in central London or inner parts of London, there's quite a few Joe and the Juicers, and I do like, and I first encountered Joe and the Juice quite a few years ago when I was in New York, and I was, surprised when I was like, oh, they're over here as well, and they have something called an Avo shake, and what that is they use vanilla milk. So it's vanilla milk with avocado and banana. Now, when I go there, I say, can you swap out the vanilla milk for just cow's milk, normal cow's milk? And I will make that here. And I might sometimes, instead of the banana, for example, I might put berries in it, or I might just put banana and berries, or I might frozen berries, from the freezer. So it's always, I always use milk and then some fruit. It's not all fruit. I just think if it's a lot of fruit, it's a little bit much. Milk, of course, has got sugar in it, but it's lactose. It's not a fructose. It's getting a little bit technical now, but it's the fructose that we want to try and avoid. Lots of fructose in fruit. So that's the difficulty with smoothies. You're better off, if you want fruit, to have a fruit salad, because that fiber that hasn't been broken down will fill you up. Best snack, I have it every afternoon, and when we're done, I'm going to go make myself one now. I get a bowl, I add a little bit of collagen in there, which I use bovine collagen, and that is really good for many things, especially I only started it a few months ago for postmenopausal women. I add a little bit of plain kefir in there, I put plain Greek yogurt, full fat into it, and then I'll add some fruit, and then I'll add some nuts. So the fruit in the summer tends to be berries, because they grow over here. And then as soon as the berry season dies down over here, I tend to go for pears. So I just cut up pears, because I like to also buy, shop locally as much as I can. So I'd rather have UK produce. So I get conference pears, and I chop those up and put that, and it's identical. That's the difference. And that is much better than blending it all down and drinking it, because you will still get a sugar spike, and that's what you want to try and avoid. With a sugar spike, what happens is your body releases the insulin. There's probably too much sugar going on there, and then you store weight around the middle. So this is why you want to try and keep your sugar levels as level as possible.
And sorry, so what was it you wanted to say before we wrap
it
up?
What I didn't say was the reason that I gave it up rather than had some here and there, because every time I did a period of time, I did a 3-day stint and then a 7-day stint sugar free, and then at the end of it I was like, well, it's over now, I'll have a bit of cake, and I immediately got a headache and I immediately got a tummy ache. So I realized that it was actually bad for me. And some people are like that, many people aren't, but it really did affect my digestion during that first year, because I say that 10 years ago I started my sugar-free journey. I wasn't sugar-free from 10 years ago by any stretch of the imagination. I tried to be, but it wasn't until about a year after that I managed, to really reduce my sugar intake and then take that journey on from there. During that first year, having little children as well, the ice cream van would come round and you'd hear it go, you hear the noise, because we've had it since we were kids, hear the noise. I was like, well, I want an ice cream now. So I'd go out there and I'd be like, could you do just a really tiny one? And she'd be like, yeah, all right then, so I'd have it every single week. Pretty much I did it, and then I got a tummy ache for 2 days and I'm rushing off to the loo. I even remember near the end knowing that it was going to happen but not being able to resist, and not having had no sugar the whole week. But when that ice cream van came around, I still got it, and I took 2 licks and then I just went straight over to the wheelie bin and threw the rest in, because I knew what was going to happen, and I could almost feel my stomach churning almost immediately, having had a little bit of the ice cream. So that's why I stopped it. Now, if you or somebody identifies that also happens to them, it's worth stopping completely, because then you will see and feel, you'll see just how good you feel afterwards. If it doesn't affect you in that way, then just reducing it as much as possible is brilliant.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of people know that there's enough memes on Instagram that says, oh, I'm going to eat the food that I know affects my IBS and see if it still affects my IBS.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and sometimes it just affects me because I'll go out and, I have a favorite local cafe that I go to and I have breakfast there all the time. And one week, I think what had happened was that they'd cooked my mushrooms in vegetable oil, and I haven't had vegetable oil for many years, like for about 3 or 4 years now, and rather than I cook in butter and and natural fats, and I felt awful for about a day after that. Or if I go somewhere and the gravy that they use has got quite a lot of flour in it, or MSG as well. I can't go anywhere that they put MSG into the food, because it gets my heart going, I get palpitations, and I get a really bad tummy ache, and often a headache as well.
It's been so interesting talking to you today. And again, it's so nice to talk to other people, different point of views. And I shall certainly be passing some of this on and making some of my clients watch this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.